Brocast is back, baby.
This Brewcast episode is brought to you by the Brewcast Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with Brewcast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the Brewcast name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another Brewcast episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Brewcast also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, Brewcast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Here we thrive, we survive!
Hey there, Brewcast fans, welcome back to another Brewcast episode. If it's your first time watching the show, please make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Yes, leave a comment. I want to read all of your comments, so comment away. I want to see some engagement in the channel, so comment and subscribe. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome our guest of the day. His name is John Dedakis. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Brew. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor.
Same here.
All right, John, so what about we start with introductions?
Well, I'm old. I've been around a while.
You're
I've
experienced, sir.
You're very diplomatic. I come from, actually, I'm half German. My grandfather was born in Bergen on the island of Regan in the northern part of Germany. My dad was born in Greece. I grew up in Wisconsin and lived there for a long time. Went into journalism. I was a journalist for 45 years, 25 of those at CNN. And during that time, I started to write mystery suspense novels, thrillers. And so I left CNN and retired in 2013. And now I'm a manuscript editor, a writing coach, and I do writing teaching at different writers' centers, writers' conferences, and so on.
Quite a life. That's amazing. And you also participated in the Vietnam War. We were talking before going live. That's also impressive.
Well, not the Vietnam War per se. I was of draft age when the Vietnam War was being fought. This was about 1968, 69, 70. And I had orders to Vietnam, and they were changed at the last minute to Germany. And I spent 2.5 years stationed at the headquarters of the American Forces Radio and Television Network in Frankfurt, Germany, AFN, doing interviews for a special events radio unit. And the first interview I did that I was assigned to do was with Alfred Hitchcock. Maybe you've heard of him. And that was a life-changing experience.
Oh, the director, right? From Psychosis?
Psycho and
yeah.
The Birds. Yeah.
Oh, this one's traumatizing. I watched The Birds as a kid. I was like, what?
That's right.
So for those who don't know, I mean, go watch it. The Birds, a classic. But it's basically the guy, Alfred Hitchcock. He transformed. He made a horror movie where birds are the monster. Like the birds are out there to kill you. And I was traumatized of. I was afraid of crows for a long time after watching this movie.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, when you're a kid, everything's you're very impressionable, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned that it was a life-altering conversation?
I think it was, because for the longest time, my plan was to go into politics and go into practice with my dad, who was a lawyer. So I was going to go into law, then politics. And I was beginning to start to question that. And so the interview with Hitchcock was life-changing in the sense that I discovered what I was good at and what I loved. And by putting those two things together, I really had some purpose and propulsion going forward in my life. And so I found myself going into journalism instead.
I see. Wow. That's amazing, man. Like that's the power of conversations. Someone once told me, Bruno, like doing podcasts is very powerful because you might be just having fun and joking around with guests, but you never know what people take out of it. And
Right.
I'm pretty sure Alfred Hitchcock, maybe he also did not know he was having a life-altering conversation with you. I guess, I don't know.
But I was, he'd done so many interviews that, I was just a blip on the radar. I did make him think, though, because I tried to ask him a question that I didn't think he'd been asked before. I asked him if I'd heard that he was afraid of death, and I wanted to ask if that were true. He said it wasn't.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of death, Mr. Hitchcock? And he said he wasn't.
Yeah, he said no. He said and I had a follow-up question. I knew that he had studied at a Jesuit seminary, and I asked him if that had any impact on his beliefs about life after death. And he said, not really. He said, it just helped me to think more clearly. And then I asked him point blank if he did have any views on life after death. And, he got very thoughtful and he said, I haven't really worked that out yet. And then he said, as near as he can tell, all thought is energy. And so he just felt that, that the life force just sort of continued. And so he felt that if we had a strong enough instrument, we could hear the voice, let's say, of Henry VIII. And so, he was very much of a belief that there was energy.
And the energy goes on after death.
Right.
Yeah. There was a time in my life that I was watching those people who died and they returned. There's a name for it.
Right.
What's the name for it? Let me think.
Near-death experiences.
Near-death experiencers, and all of them, they claim that they went, like their spirit left their bodies and they started levitating and they went to somewhere. They saw the light and they went to this other place where it's very blissful and life goes on. But then something happened that called them back, like their purpose, their mission on Earth was not, they should had something to do here on Earth. And it's very similar. All their stories is very similar. And I mean, maybe Alfred was into something.
Maybe. Yeah. Who knows? We won't know until we get there, right?
Yeah. I'm not in a hurry though.
Yeah, same here. I think Woody Allen said, I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens.
Wow. That's a good quote. I'm not afraid of that, but I just don't want to be there when John, so let's unpack a little bit of your time at CNN. Let's start with the Alfred Hitchcock interview. What led you there? What was he promoting, a movie, or?
He was promoting Frenzy, which was the second to the last movie that he made, and it had to do with a serial killer.
Frenzy. I never watched this one. Let me look it up. I'm sharing the screen, guys. Screen share guests.
That looks like it. There it is. Right.
Wow. Have you seen it, John?
I have.
Yeah. Wow. I need to watch this. I mean, all the movies that I watched from him were very good. Yeah. So he was promoting this movie. So interviewing directors was a common thing. I think you also interview presidents. Am I right?
I have. I mean, I did cover the White House when Reagan was president, and I interviewed Jimmy Carter after he was president. So I've interviewed a lot of people over the years.
So I cannot even. You say it so casually. Yeah, I interview a couple of presidents. That's amazing, man. So I mean, I think I need to ask you some questions. Like, you need to teach me the interview techniques. That's amazing. How was interviewing presidents? Did you know that? Did you learn something? I mean, I, I, I cannot even imagine how that works.
Well, in the interview with Reagan, I mean, I've interviewed him a couple of times, and the one that stands out, though, was in the Oval Office. And it was during a story that we were producing on the White House press corps versus the president and the natural friction that is part of the relationship. It's an adversarial relationship because the president's press secretary, no matter what party they're in, is trying to make the president look perfect and their policies. And it's our job as reporters to find out what's really going on. And so the story, allowed us into the Oval Office to get some pictures. And I asked Reagan a few questions. And I also questioned him at a White House press conference, and he called on me. And this was at a time when tensions between the U.S. and Libya were very, very tense. And it was interesting. I go back and look at the answer to the question, and it was a masterful non-answer. He was very, very careful to keep the temperature low and not say anything provocative or anything bombastic. And so I didn't learn anything from that interview.
But you went into this interview with the goal of unpacking what was going on between U.S. and Libya. That was the goal, like getting more information out of it.
Exactly. It was a time when the Muammar Gaddafi was the president of Libya, and the U.S. had naval operations in the Gulf of Sidra near there, and Gaddafi was being belligerent and saying if the U.S. crosses the line of death, that he was going to attack us. And so it was kind of a showdown, and Reagan was, doing his best to, go down the middle and not be provocative, but at the same time, not back down either.
As far as I know, they got him. It didn't work well for Gaddafi.
They did. They didn't get him right away. It took a long time. There was an attack that he escaped, that particular one. And it was in retaliation for a bombing of a discotheque in Berlin. This would have been back in the 80s. And I think a U.S. serviceman was killed. And so this was in retaliation for that.
I see. Well, although it must have been frustrating to have had this interview where basically no information was given, I guess he was doing nothing but his job, because I can see some parallels with what happened recently between Trump and Venezuela, right? Like, why on earth he would have revealed that he was planning to kidnap this guy or anything of sort? Like, no, it's like all intel that he needs to keep to himself.
Right. I mean, presidents are always playing it close to the vest.
Yeah.
Trump is an unusual president in that he's much more bombastic, much more audacious in the way he operates. And so I'm kind of glad I'm not covering his presidency because I think that it would be a real challenge. That's putting it mildly.
I'm glad I'm not covering his presidency. Wow. Yeah, it's a roller coaster, right? Every day.
Yeah.
It's like I just turn on the news here from Germany. I watch a lot of YouTube, and it's like,
well, let me ask you a quick question. You must have, I mean, what's been your attitude or an impression of the United States from where you sit with a president that we have that's so unpredictable?
I mean, he's not my president, so like his temper and his actions don't affect me directly, but they do affect me indirectly with the sanctions. That's no, it was not saying what is the term exact? Tariffs. The tariffs. Yeah, for example, this affects me. So then I start to when like the indirect consequences affect me, then I start getting annoyed. But other than that,
well, what about NATO? I mean, Germany is part of NATO, and NATO is, we're all supposedly protecting each other, and at this point, because of his belligerence toward Denmark, which is also another NATO ally, it's raising the question of, is there going to be that much defense against a possible incursion from Russia? I mean, Russia has already invaded Ukraine, and if the NATO alliance crumbles, then arguably Germany is at risk, isn't it?
I don't like to think about. I mean, that would be, if that happens, that's like a few steps on the line. I don't think
Right.
I don't like to worry that much into the future. I would say first he needs to invade Greenland. Is it
Denmark.
Denmark? Right?
Denmark, right. Well, no, I take that back. Greenland. Did I say Denmark? I may have. Denmark is basically, in control of Greenland. So yeah, Greenland.
Yeah, and then I would start worrying about it. But he said he's not doing that. So, but who knows? It's very unpredictable, right?
I know that's his plan. Keep everybody off balance.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. And so when those things are like when those decisions are approaching Europe, then it starts annoying me, because then everything gets more expensive. Who knows? There's be an Arctic war. My gut feeling says that there won't be, but I cannot foresee the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
But besides, other than those things that really affect Europe, I would say it's mostly entertaining.
Oh, it's more than that. It's actually, if maybe from where you sit, it's entertaining. Where we sit, it's actually very concerning, because our freedoms are eroding, and we are heading, I'm afraid, toward a dictatorship, where it's not entirely out of the question that Trump will declare martial law and take over the midterm elections, so that he will be able to retain power, keep the Republicans in power. And who knows, maybe even he will stay in power longer. It's no longer out of the question. He just seems to be unchecked. There are no guardrails anymore. The Supreme Court doesn't seem to have any power over him. The Congress doesn't, even though the U.S. system has 3 branches of government, and there's supposed to be a check and balance on each other. But right now, he's the big dog. He's the one in charge, and and seems to be unaccountable. And it's very frightening here to live in this country right now.
How, if you had to guess, or had to put a percentage, how much would you say that's gonna happen? That after his term is over, he's gonna seize power, and if that's what you're saying.
Well, I think that I'm not any good at predicting the future either. I mean, I think that it could very well be a better than a 50-50 chance that either he stays in power indefinitely, or he rigs things so that the Republicans stay in power, and that could very well happen, unless the people feel that there's a need to rise up and resist the current direction that we're heading. But it's tricky. It's tricky because the government has all the guns, has all the power. And we just saw in the streets of Minneapolis, a person who was protesting, but they were armed, but they were not brandishing a weapon. They were, were holding a cell phone, but they were executed on the street. And yet the government's position, in spite of the video that clearly contradicts the government's position, they're saying he was a terrorist. He was confronting the police and was out to massacre them, and that there's just no evidence that shows that.
Have you seen this movie? It's a biopic from Donald Trump, and there's this actor Sebastian Stan, and he plays Trump, and I haven't seen it completely, but I saw short parts of it.
Yeah.
And there's one part very specifically that he as Sebastian Stan playing Trump says very clearly, like, there's no losing, there's only winning, and anyone who attacks you, just deny them, just deny. Like, there's no truth besides your own truth, and what is the truth? What you say. And as long as you keep repeating whatever you're saying, that becomes the truth. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but that's how Trump is portrayed in the movie, and I'm sure they did their research.
I think that that is very accurate, and I mean, Germany has, not too long ago, that what they called it the big lie. I mean, they actually admitted that in so many words. You repeat a lie over and over again enough, and pretty soon people begin to believe it. And we all know our history and the consequences of that on a mass scale. It was totally. I mean, it plunged the world into World War II, and based on a lie.
Whew. John, I feel like
This is a real downer here, Brew.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I feel like we could cover politics the entire
Yeah,
episode, but I would like to cover other things as well.
sure.
Is that okay?
Sorry about that.
No, it's
Yeah,
fine,
it's
because I
fine.
also get hyped up, and so I would like to go back a little bit about your time at CNN, because
Sure.
you mentioned that you interviewed Ronald Reagan, and I have a very special question for you. Apparently, Ronald Reagan was one of the first presidents who was briefed on the existence of intelligent life visiting our planet. And I
I have no idea. I have no idea. You're asking me a question I have no idea what the answer is there. Could be. I don't know.
So you guys did not touch on that subject.
It's not something I covered.
Okay. Well, I had to ask. Now we got this out of the way. All right. But other than that, during your time at CNN, you were an editor at the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer.
That's right.
How was that?
That was good. That was a really good experience because Wolf Blitzer is a journalist's journalist. He's been around a long time. I worked with him for 7 years, and I don't know what his politics are, because I think more than anything, he cares about accuracy. And our program, which is still on the air, primarily focuses on geopolitics, wars, presidential elections, the big issues. And Wolf was able. He's very knowledgeable and unflappable in that he's able to go in whatever direction he needs to go on short notice, depending on what is the news of the moment.
Yeah, I researched the show. Oops. I researched the Situation Room of Wolf Blitzer, and it's huge. I was looking at it before.
Yeah, and the program is broadcast worldwide, so it's able to be seen in Germany as well,
So
where you are.
it's still the same guy, Wolf Blitzer. Yeah, I'm looking at him right now.
There you go.
That's cool. And when you say editor, because my mind is like it's like movie editor. You're not actually using.
No, but I mean, primarily, it's being an editor is like being a goalie. It means that you're basically you're seeing the words and the scripts before the anchor does, and so my job was to make sure that the scripts were accurate, that they were written clearly, and also that the fonts on the screen, the supers that you saw, were spelled correctly, and all of that. So it's, being an editor is just protecting air and protecting the content.
Oh, that's super important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I was watching this interview of John Cena. He was in China promoting something. I don't know, a movie, and the editor. So the guy responsible for doing exactly what you just described, put some propaganda into the text. Said something. God bless China. I don't know. Don't quote me on, guys. But anyway, like, he angered the whole nation, The whole nation,
Sure.
like because of one phrase that the editor put in there. John Cena did not took the time to revise the whole thing, and
Mm,
he paid the price. Would you say that
yeah.
was his fault for not revising this stuff?
Well, I mean, it depends on the context and what the program was, but if it was supposed to be a straight newscast and someone slipped in bias, because journalism's job is to inform, not persuade. I mean, newspapers have editorial pages where, opinions are certainly acceptable, but in straight news reporting, it's not acceptable. You're not really supposed to try to persuade people. You just need to give them the facts and let them make up their own mind.
Mm, I see. Just for context for the audience, I'm sharing the screen right now. So, in May
Yeah.
2021, John Cena sparked intense backlash from China by referring to Taiwan as a country during the Fast and Furious 9 promotional interview, violating the One China policy. To avoid box
Uh,
office boycotts, he posted a profuse apology in Mandarin on Weibo, which subsequently caused criticism in the US for bowing to pressure. So, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the controversy, but I can understand why China took issue with it, and yet I can understand why someone could make the mistake of calling Taiwan a country. It's a very nuanced uh, situation, and so China objected, and they're within their rights to do that because it's Taiwan exists, but it's also the policy. It's a very delicate kind of thing right now, and so I can understand why the controversy happened, but beyond that, I don't want to go there too deeply because I'm not aware of all the nuances, but I can see where it's a debate. It's debatable.
Yeah, my point being is that they were just promoting a movie, and let's say there was a slip that I saw the podcast where he explained what happened, and it was the editor who put that phrase in there, and this whole can of worms happened like open because they were promoting a movie. I cannot even imagine if was like a slip like that in a news, like which is supposedly should be taken seriously. Like you said
Right.
that the editors are not supposed to be biased. How
Right.
strict this rules follow, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's people are people, and people
Mhm.
have opinions, and that's okay. The trick is to be as dispassionate as possible as a journalist, and so people are always quibbling about an alleged bias on the part of reporters, and sometimes it's there, and sometimes they're being very professional and they're doing their best, to keep their opinions out of it. But that's something that editors are always on guard for, and that's not to say that mistakes don't happen, but it's every script is gone over for that purpose, or at least one of the purposes, to make sure that it's factual and dispassionate. And I think that you don't have to look very far to find examples of how editors and journalists failed at that because of their humanity.
Yeah, I heard that in the US there's a battle of networks. There's like the liberals and then the Republicans, and they attack each other. I never looked too much into it, but apparently it's a huge thing.
Well, it's a problem now because cable news, people are now gravitating toward news channels that seem to echo their point of view. And it's not really too much different than the way it was in the United States 250 years ago when we were beginning. Every political party had their own newspaper. And so that's how people
Really?
communicated with each other by the giving their opinions through different newspapers. And I think that to a certain extent we're seeing that again. People gravitate toward news sources that feel that reinforce their own opinions. And sometimes the coverage is fair, but it's a matter of what they don't cover that may show what their bias is or what they choose to cover. And so it's especially a problem in broadcasting, or at least in cable. You have several different cable outlets, and they will either skew conservative or liberal or maybe in the middle. But newspapers and wire services tend to be a little more dispassionate about it. So if you're reading the news, it's entirely possible you're going to get something that's a little less biased and more to the point and factual.
Would you say which one of them would you say is the most unbiased one?
Well, I would say CNN.
It don't work there anymore. You don't.
Oh, well, I don't work there anymore, and it's certainly different than when I was there. And they do more news analysis now than they do news coverage. They do still do coverage, but it's not, I don't think, as thorough as it was in the past. I primarily get my news from, like, say, the Associated Press or Reuters, which is the UK wire service. So in New York Times, I think is a reliable news source. But I think the important thing is to, not just settle on one source, but to try to read widely, so that you have different perspectives, because different news organizations differ on what the news is or what is most important. There are a lot of things going on, and there aren't the resources to be able to cover everything. And so what's considered news is a judgment call that's made every day in newsrooms around the world. And not everyone is going to agree on what's considered newsworthy. So, arguably it can be a mess. And then coupled with that, anyone who's got a cell phone is a publisher. So, if you have, 500 followers and you post a story, there's no editor on your shoulder saying, where did you get that? How do you know it's true? And so with the internet, the danger is that there is a lot of unfiltered falsehoods that are circulating. And so it just becomes much more dangerous as far as being able to discern what the truth is and what's false.
And with AI, it's even harder.
Yeah. I mean, AI is a mixed bag as well. I mean, it makes things up sometimes. Sometimes it can be very helpful as a way of summarizing things. I wouldn't recommend using it to write a novel because it doesn't know you as well as you know you. So, but it's here to stay as well. So we're in a transition period, a very delicate transition period where we have to kind of tiptoe our way into the future.
All right, John. So I would like to cover a little bit more about your novels. So, but before that, let's go into a quick sponsor break, and we're going to be right back. All right. Parents, have you been searching for an app that's both fun and educational for your kids? I've got something exciting to share with you today. It's called FunTastic Plus. FunTastic Plus is a free app where education meets entertainment, designed specially for children ages 2 to 12. It's built by experts, completely ad-free and totally safe, so you can feel confident handing your phone or tablet to your little ones. Inside the app, kids will find a world of engaging content, their favorite cartoons, audiobooks and songs to spark imagination, educational games that make learning fun, and all of that to keep them entertained while supporting their development. FunTastic Plus is available on iPhones and iPads and even works offline, so whether you are on a road trip, flying, or just at home, your kids will always have something to enjoy. So if you're ready to give your kids a space that's both fun and educational, download now FunTastic Plus for free on the App Store. FunTastic Plus is a safe and ad-free educational platform for kids. Link on the description below. All right, everyone, and we're back. Parents, go check FunTastic Plus. Make sure to download it for your kids. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of games. And once again, FunTastic Plus, thank you so much for sponsoring the show. John, we're back, my friend.
Hello, Brew. How are you?
I'm great. All right, so let's cover a little bit your novels. You've been writing a lot, right, since you retired?
I have. I actually started writing before I retired because I needed a creative outlet. When they made me an editor, it was tedious because it was fault finding, but it paid well, and I needed a creative outlet. And so I taught myself how to write novels. And over the last 20 years, I've written 6 of them. I write from the point of view of a 20-something young woman who's trying to figure out what to do with her life, and she ends up going into journalism. And one of the journalism is a subtext of the novels, but so is grief, because grief is also a part of life, and we all have experienced pain and loss. And it doesn't necessarily even mean the death of a loved one. It can be the loss of a job or a relationship or a pet or your promotion or your innocence or your health. Any number of things can produce feelings of sadness and loss and grief. And so those feelings are worked out. I work out those feelings in the life of my protagonist, Lark Chadwick, through the life of these novels.
And well, first of all, that's very interesting. That's true. But why a young woman?
I didn't really set out to do that, other than someone suggested that when I write, I should write in a way that stretches who I am. Never been a woman, at least not in this life. And so I gave it a try, and I made an interesting discovery, and that is that emotions are not based on gender. Everyone, whether they're male or female, have the same emotions. It's just that in my experience, the women in my life are more willing to share their emotions, and they're more articulate about the emotions they share. And so when I was working at CNN, I was working for the most part with young women in their early to mid 20s, and they would answer my questions about their jobs, their careers, their families, and they would tell me what it's like to be a woman. And then they became my beta readers. They read early drafts of the novels, and that helped to make the voice of my protagonist more authentic. And so I didn't find out until much later, however, that there's a deeper emotional reason that I write as a woman. And that's because I'm trying to create a character I wish my sister had allowed herself to become. She was brilliant. She could have been a surgeon. She could have been a concert pianist. But her husband said, what would it look like, a football star or a football coach married to a surgeon? And one by one, she gave up her dreams, to the point where 20 years into their marriage, she went into the garage, shut the door, turned on the car, and committed suicide through carbon monoxide poisoning. And so my protagonist, Lark Chadwick, doesn't let a guy define who she is. She still falls for the bad boys, but she's got, a certain degree of inner strength that I wish my sister had had. And so, in all of the novels, I think I'm processing my grief. I'm working through grief, and writing can be a catharsis. And so that's something that I've incorporated in the writing classes that I teach and the speeches that I give, using writing as a way to heal from grief.
Wow, that's so interesting. So was it a conscious? So you write from a young woman's point of view because of your sister and how she passed away, and you want to portray a character who doesn't let a guy define who she is, therefore trying to vindicate your sister in a way.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good way of putting it. I never really thought of it quite that way, but yeah, I think to a certain extent that's part of it.
Was it a
But I didn't.
but
But it shows the power of the subconscious, because it wasn't until I probably wrote the 4th book that I realized that deeper reason. Up until that point, I was just writing in a way that stretched me.
wow, so it took you 4 books to realize
Yeah.
why you were doing it.
Yeah, I'm a slow learner.
No, I don't think you are. I think it's more about how the brain works. I was just
Yes.
wondering how many other things we might do in life that we don't even know the reason behind it.
That's very true. And that's one of the things I try to teach my writing students is that the better you know yourself as a person, the better your writing will be because you'll be coming from a place of authenticity. You'll recognize it. You'll be able to challenge it, ask questions of yourself. Why do I feel this way? What am I feeling? And what am I going to do about it? So, I think that when it comes to writing, whether it's journaling or poetry or writing a story, all of those things require, I think, a certain degree of self knowledge, or at least the process of writing can be of a way of self discovery, even though you're writing through the life of another person, another character, a character that you've created.
Yeah, and it's fiction, and
Yeah.
it's not even real life, and it's helping you for real. That's pretty
But you're
impressive.
trying to create a real life type of situation. You're not necessarily recreating it, but you are capturing its essence and putting a fictionalized character and giving them you're giving them a world in which to live and work and navigate, which is what good storytelling is.
I was watching this podcast the other day with the guy behind Jackass. Oh man, what was his name again? Let me look it
I
up.
don't know.
Have you? But I guess you heard about Jackass before, right?
I have, but I'm not real familiar with it.
So Jackass, just for those listening, are those guys from the early 2000s who used to just record themselves getting hurt, and this would generate so many views. They became millionaires out of it.
Oh my God.
And it was before YouTube then, because they would record in VHSs and share VHSs with each other. Anyway, it became a huge thing. So the main guy from Jackass, what is his name again? Oh my god, guys, didn't you find it? Johnny Knoxville, that's the main guy. So he's used to do therapy for a long time. He did therapy, but he he had a very clear threshold that he would not go beyond with their therapist. Like anything that would make him want to hurt himself, they would not talk
Right.
about, because that's how he made his living,
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like we can talk about anything else, but if we talk about that, that's forbidden territory, because he still needed to make his living out of it. And where I'm going with this is, do you believe that once you're done processing the grief from your sister, the will to write will cease?
Oh my, that's a really thought-provoking question. I don't think so because I don't think I'll ever be totally through processing it because there because I think that grief in a sense redefines you. It's part of my life now. And so as I go forward in my life, I'm informed by the painful experiences that I've had. I have no intention of stopping the series and moving into some other form of writing. I may take another form of writing on, but at this point, I don't see myself stopping the series. But even if I did, I don't think I will have stopped actually processing things because, since she died, then there was another loss. My youngest son, 22 years old, died of a heroin overdose back in 2011. And so, that story, his story, informs some of my subsequent books. So, look, grief and loss is an accumulation. It's part of life. And, we will continue to experience setbacks in our life. Some may be more dramatic than others, but I don't think you ever get over it and beyond it. I think it's just a matter of trying to maintain a head-heart balance, a sense of an emotional equilibrium, so that the emotions aren't so powerful that they're leading you around by the nose. I think that there's an importance of being able to establish some sort of balance in your life, and that's a daily struggle, I think, for most people.
Mm, I see. In true writing, you're able in some way to you use it as an outlet in a way.
Yeah.
Y-
Yeah.
y-
It's a catharsis. It's a way to
Catharsis.
let the emotions out. There was one person who took one of my memoir classes. I teach a class on helping people capture their story. And he was telling me about his wife who had died, and he was writing a story about that. And he kept a journal at the time that she was sick and died. And he said when he went back and looked, he said, I forgot how angry I was at the time, because the act of writing it down in real time during the events helped siphon off those potentially toxic emotions. And they went onto the page, and that freed him, I think, to move forward. But it was good that he had written it down, because it was a reminder that that was part of the life experience. And so, writing can be a way of processing things, and yet at the same time being able to look at them look at feelings that are so tumultuous inside of us, to be able to look at them in a bit more of a dispassionate way.
See, man, that's so powerful. That's amazing. It's really cool. Before starting the show, I mentioned how I recently learned about expressive writing recently, which is basically you just write whatever you want, no matter punctuation, for the formats. It doesn't matter. As long as you're writing, whatever comes to mind, you're
Yeah.
helping your brain to process your emotions.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I mean,
It's it's actually something I incorporated into one of my writing classes, a couple of
oh,
them actually. I give my students an assignment. I set a timer for 10 minutes, and I say, interview one of your characters. It's almost like a job interview, but you're not trying to figure out what they're going to say. You just ask the question, who are you and why do you want to be in my book? And then listen to the voice that shows up, because writing is like dipping a straw into your subconscious. And the act of asking questions is like taking a sip. And when you are moving your fingers on the keyboard or on the page, it's like the creativity comes through your fingers and onto the page, because voices will show up that are in your subconscious based on the experiences that you've had. And if you just write them, not trying to be fancy, not trying to be literary, but just transcribing them and interacting with them. So if the guy says, I don't want to be in your book, you ask a follow-up question, why not? And see what he says to that. And just keep the pen moving, keep the fingers moving, because you're bypassing that that left brain critical editor who will censor you. Just let it out. You can always go back and do the revisions. But I think what you've talked about is a very important way of creating your first draft, which is the discovery draft. It's discovering what's in there, and then you go back and make it more coherent.
oh, that's so interesting. But what happened if the character says, I don't want to be in your book. Get me out of here. Like,
Yeah. Well, then you ask, well, why are you so afraid? What are you afraid of? And you just goad the voice into saying more.
because at the end of the day, it's all you, right? Even though
It is.
you assume you're talking to another, you suspend your disbelief to the point you're writing to another character. You're talking to yourself.
It is, but I think it's transcendent as well, because that there are plenty of writers who have created characters that aren't anything like them. But I think that kind of free writing opens you up to I think a creative force that is partly in you and is partly maybe in the universe. And it's spooky. I can't explain it. I have no pretension that I know what that means, but I do know that it exists and that it's accessible. And I can see you're looking at my website that shows the different books that I've written. Um,
Yes.
uh,
Fast Track, a novel by John
Fast
Dedakis.
Track. That's the first one. That scene, the picture there I took. It's a scene from from the book where my protagonist has a showdown with a train.
Oh, it's a train. Okay. Damn
Yeah.
it. She gonna get run over.
Well, you would think so. And Bluff, I hiked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu in Peru to research that one.
Man, you're like you're doing like you're going to locations to do research. That's like pro
In
level
some
research.
cases,
It's
in,
amazing.
in some cases, yeah. That's the same book, different publisher. I took the picture on the front of that of this murder scene. Troubled Water takes place in Georgia, in the south of in the U.S., where she becomes a cops and courts reporter and solves the mystery of that. Solves a mystery there. That's the audio book version. Bluff or Bullet in the Chamber, you can see the image of a bullet in a syringe. That basically has taken the collateral damage around the time that my son went missing and was found dead. And so I've used that story as a subplot. Because I felt that if the cops could make the connection between the fatal drug dose, fatal dose of heroin, and the pusher, that they should charge the guy with second-degree murder, because it's like selling a pistol with one bullet in the chamber to a person you know is going to play Russian roulette and you don't care. It's that kind of criminal irresponsibility, but it's not that easy for the police to prove those kind of cases. So again, I was working through my grief and anger at the time.
Isn't there a quote that goes, "Life imitates art, and art imitates life"?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Very much so. And those books have won awards. Fake is my fifth novel. My protagonist by this time is a White House correspondent. I started writing it when Trump was elected the first time because I was troubled that he was calling journalists enemies of the American people. And I just knew that was a false statement. And so I created a story in which my protagonist, national news is happening because of her. We know that what's being reported is false. And I wanted to show that lies have consequences. And then the most recent novel after Fake is Enemies Domestic, which is based on the oath of office that government officials take to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And in Enemies Domestic, Lark becomes White House press secretary. She's pregnant. She's not sure she wants to be a single mom, but abortion is a crime in most states, and a dictator becomes president. And so it's very much what we're going through in this country right now, even though I wrote it a year before Trump was elected the second time.
You've been busy, sir.
Well, it's taken a while. I'm not doing all these things at once.
And you're writing them themselves, because I know some writers, I wrote 20 books last year, and it's like all ghost writers. Like, bro, okay, get out of here. You didn't write anything. You're
Now,
writing
my
them.
wife, I have to give my wife credit for at least Enemies Domestic. She and I worked on it together. She and I came up with the idea, and then I did the writing, but she was my first reader, and it was her feedback that really helped make it a better book. And so it was quite a collaborative effort.
During the when you were describing one of your classes, how you teach people how to write and process grief, you mentioned that it doesn't matter if they're writing by hand or they're typing. So the method doesn't matter as long as you're getting it out.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. I once heard that when you write with a pen or a pencil instead of typing, there are more neurons that are activated on your brain.
I think that's true, because I think it forces you to slow down. You can only write so fast, and yet all these ideas are percolating, and so you have to be more patient, and it requires you to retain those thoughts and give them a chance to form before they come through the page. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think I write my journal when I write every day is in longhand. But when I write my novels, I write it on the computer. But I think that there is a lot of value in writing in longhand.
No, because like you're committing to it. You really need to be purposeful. That's the right. Yeah.
Purposeful. Yeah, you're making a commitment.
Yeah, because when you type on a computer, you can always like copy paste, go back and erase. Like you're still writing, but it's so dynamic that you don't need to think too much about it, I guess. I mean, you still need to think about it. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, well, I used to call it word processing,
Yeah.
which is, kind of a technical term, and I think takes the art out of the phrase writing or the word writing.
John, so I think it's very clear the reasons why you write, and it's beneficial to you. But let's take another writer, for example, Stephen King, right? He also writes nonstop. Would you say like, what would be his motivations? Because, for example, money. He doesn't need money, right? Would you say what is inside of every writer that keeps writing? You would say it's always grief, or
No, not necessarily. I think that there's a strong desire on the part of a writer to connect. There's a strong desire to communicate, to capture whatever it is that they want to, whether it is something from within or that they just want to spin an interesting story. But at its root, there's just this deep desire to communicate.
a deep desire to communicate. Got it. Man, that's so interesting. I tried to write a book, I think 1 or 2 years ago when AI came around, ChatGPT came around. It was a mess.
Well, and was that discouraging and you gave up?
I was not having fun. I was just testing the AI. I'm not a writer, by the way, so I was just really trying to push the limits and see how far I could go with AI only.
What did you discover?
It doesn't work. I mean, you really need to know what you want and go for it. Like I was, I gonna give an example. I was like, give me a plot for a book. Actually, give me 5 plots for a book, and then I picked the favorite one, and then I wrote, write me the first chapter, and then he wrote like 30 lines. I was like, that's too little. Write more. And then he wouldn't. I think he wrote up to 100 lines or 200 lines. And I was like, okay, let's assume that's the first chapter. Okay, copy paste that on a Word document so I can save it, right? And I was like, okay, now write chapter 2, follow up the story. And he just wouldn't remember the context. And I would have to keep reminding him what happened. And no, you're writing, like, it just felt like I was forcing someone who did not want to write for me, or someone who it was a mess.
Yeah.
So
well, it can be a mess even if you know what you're doing.
I see. Yeah. Do you happen to use AI at all?
Not really. I experimented with it myself just because I teach classes and the question comes up. And so I wanted to be a little bit more familiar with it. There was a short story. I don't write short stories, but I was asked to contribute one to an anthology. And so I put parameters into the chat GPT. I basically said it needs to be 5,000 words. This is what it needs to be about. This is the title. Write it. And it spit it out instantly, but it sucked. It was terrible. And I knew instinctively I can do better than this. And I did. So that cured me of it. AI has been very helpful in being able to write a summary of your novel. It's helpful to to be able to write a synopsis. That's always a hard thing to do, but it's already just taking what you have and synthesizing it down. So there are some things that AI can do very well. It can be a kind of a research tool, so much as you're still able to verify the sources. But part of it is asking the right questions. And so, I am not an enemy of AI, but I'm definitely a skeptic and I'm very careful about it. And if you are interested, if someone listening is interested in writing a novel and getting traditionally published, really be careful about AI because, in order to be published traditionally, you will need to stipulate that you did not use AI as a creative tool and that the writing is your own. Because the danger is that you'll be infringing on copyrighted material that is also out there that is teaching AI. So, if you really have a desire to write, then take that desire to its fullest and go deep into yourself and create something that's fresh, because AI doesn't know you and doesn't know what's inside of you. And so when it comes out, it's fresh and maybe unique for the rest of the world. So, AI is there, but you really don't need it. You really don't.
I love that take. I really like it because I had Brent Dolan on the podcast a few days ago, and he's a huge podcaster in the US, and we were talking about exactly that. Like everyone will be able to do everything with AI. Already, I mean, people can already do it. It's kind of bad. It doesn't look that good, but it's gonna get better, and more people are gonna use it in the future. And what that will cause? It will cause people to want authentic materials, even more authentic movies, authentic books, stuff done by humans. That's what people will desire the most, because everything's gonna be AI slop. Everything. So you will crave. That's the word I was looking for. You crave for something human made.
Something authentic that's not phony.
Yeah. So all those writers who are writing with AI right now, like, you can tell. You think people they can tell. Yeah. All right, John. Man, such an interesting conversation. You're such an interesting guest.
Well, thanks. You ask good questions.
Thank you. So where people can find you, or your website?
That's it. Thank you for the opportunity for that. My website is myname.com, which is johndedakis.com, and I'll spell that. It's JOHN, D as in dog E, D as in dog A, KIS as in Sam, johndedakis.com. It's got my books there, the things that I speak about, my upcoming events, the classes that I teach. Many of them I teach online, which means you can be anywhere in the world and take them. And so, and you can get an email to me through my website as well, johndedakis.com.
Perfect. Any final remarks?
No, thank you very much, Brew, for this opportunity to talk. It was relaxing. It was challenging. It was fun.
It was fun. All right, man. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Same here.
All right, everyone. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the Brewcast store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies, from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with Brewcast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a Brewcast model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy Brewcast. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing Brewcast merch, or watching an episode of the show, and send it to us and become part of Brewcast. We will feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.